When you pay bonuses or commissions with regular wages, the combined payment could put someone into a higher tax bracket, and as a result, the tax calculated on the check might be disproportionately high. Well, the IRS and several states offer alternative withholding calculations on supplemental wages. Watch this lesson, and we'll show you how to set this up in payroll. When the lesson is over, you should be able to set up alternative withholding rates for tax calculations on supplemental wages, produce a separate check for an employee's bonus pay, and process the pay by withholding taxes only and nothing else.
Hi Gina, good news. I'm getting ready to do the last payroll of the year, and I'm told we're all getting bonuses.
Wow, that is good news.
Well, before everyone gets paid, I need to find out how to process the payroll so each employee can get 2 checks, one for their regular wages and another for their bonus pays. But more importantly, Human Resources told me to use a different withholding calculation for the bonus pays, so I need to find out how to set this up.
Okay, let's tackle it one thing at a time. Let me use our sample database to explain how to do this. First, you need to set up a brand new pay ID for processing bonuses, and this pay ID will only be taxed based on the alternative federal and state withholding taxes. Go to Setup, then Pays. What pay ID do you want to use?
Let's call it something clever. How about bonus?
Bonus it is. And we'll give it an equally inventive description. Next, you need to assign the new pay ID a pay type of Other. Notice some other boxes appear in this window now.
Like the one called Supplemental?
Right. When you click this box, it tells payroll to use the supplemental rates to calculate taxes for this pay ID.
And where do we put the supplemental rate?
We'll get to that in just a second, but first we need to finish setting up this pay ID. Enter a printed description for the check stubs, then assign an expense account. I like to use the List button to make sure that I pick the correct account. If this pay should be costed to a job, assign the appropriate job cost information. As for the calculation method, we'll use flat amount as an example for this pay. In your case, the supplemental pay might be based on another option. Make sure the distribution information is correct. Then when you're done setting up the pay ID, click Save, then Close.
Gina, we just set up the pay ID for the bonus pay to use supplemental rates for calculating withholding. But where do we enter the supplemental rates?
We enter those in the tax rate setups for the federal and state withholdings. Go to the Setup menu, then select Taxes, then Tax Rates. Now, before you set up the alternative withholding methods, make sure you get the correct rates from the IRS and your State Department of Revenue. Let's enter a supplemental rate for the federal withholding. Notice the area in the lower left-hand side of the window?
So this is where I enter the supplemental rate.
Right. The alternative withholding calculation can be based on a percent or on a formula. The federal withholding is a flat 25%. Type 25 in the percent box, then save this tax record. Why don't we set up a supplemental rate for the Oregon state withholding, since most of the employees in this database work in Oregon?
So again, go to the supplemental rate area and enter a percent or a formula.
Right. This time we'll use 9% as our example. Okay, we're done with setting up the alternative withholding rates. Shall we see how you can create a separate check just for the bonus pay? If you pay regular and supplemental wages in the same pay period, but you need to issue 2 separate checks, you have to use the Enter Checks command to enter a second check sequence. From Tasks, go to Enter Checks. Select a time entry view. We'll use one that's set up for this database. We can leave out the period begin date and click OK. Let's pick on Employee 101. For the period ending 12/31, his regular earnings are included in the first sequence check. We're going to give him a bonus check in that same pay period, so for period end 12/31, let's use the second check sequence.
You know, I never even noticed that sequence field before.
It's pretty useful. You can enter up to 50 checks per pay period.
Wow!
For the second check sequence, we'll enter the bonus pay using the new pay ID we set up.
This pay ID is supposed to use a supplemental rate for calculating the withholding?
Exactly. Let's test this out by processing the check. For the calculation frequencies, select the appropriate option, but if you only want taxes to calculate for this check, clear all of the options.
Clear all the options?
Right. Otherwise, it may calculate deductions and fringes as well, which we don't want on this bonus check.
The Oregon state withholding looks correct, using the supplemental rate of 9% on $1,000. Can we look at the federal withholding?
Sure. Click the Tax button.
It looks correct too, using the flat rate for supplemental wages of 25% on $1,000.
Yes. You can also use the Check Info button to make sure that no other pays, fringes, or deductions calculated with this check.
When I use this Enter Checks window to enter the bonus pays as a second check sequence, do I have to process the check here as well?
No, you can use the normal procedure of process payroll for all of the checks. The downside is that if there are automatic pays, fringes, or deductions that calculate, you may not be able to catch it on the bonus check if you only want to include the federal and state withholdings.
Good point.
You can include the bonus checks with the regular check run. Or if they're manual checks, click the Manual button here in the Enter Checks window and enter the check number and check date. When you're done with the bonus check for one employee, click Accept Check and enter the next one. When you're all done, click Finish.
That wasn't so hard. Thanks, Gina.
You're welcome, Brent. Now you can set up alternative withholding rates for calculating taxes on supplemental wages, create a separate check for bonus pay, and process the earnings by only withholding taxes and nothing else.